Joe from Guitar Nerds here, and I'm here in Germany at the Warwick and Framus factory for this year's GuitCon.
I was a huge Yes fan. Right? That was my older brother's favorite band. So it's just natural that I'm gonna like understand it because I owned every record they made. I owned every Yes record.
You never got that into pick playing.
I played with the pick with a ton actually, but
Really?
I don't know. I think
because Racer X.
Racer X was all fingers.
Yeah. That's kind of the thing though. That was the thing about Racer X was that you were finger style in really fast music.
Right. But when I got into like the new wave stuff, every bass player that I was into besides Mick Karn was playing with a pick. So Peter Hook played with a pick, and Adam Clayton played with a pick, and I forget who was even playing bass in Killing Joke at the time, but played with a pick. So I said, well, shit, I got to do both because this is the music I'm into. So I played with a pick, but I also played with my fingers. And then, Mick Karn kind of kept me in there, and then I was into Jocko, and that kept me playing fingers. And then I got into like a stupid shred phase where it's like you had to play the fingers because that made you more legit. And if you did it with the pick, you were actually just, everybody's gonna think you were a guitar player on bass. So I was like, fuck that, I'm gonna play with my fingers the whole time. So these dudes know that I'm a bass player first. I came from bass, I never played guitar. And so, all that shit is like, kid shit. And then when I got back to the music I wanted to do, which started with Distortion Felix, this band I was in the 90s, I played the entire band with a pick. And Big Sur, I played fretless like Mick Karn, and so that was all fretless with fingers. So I was doing both, so it was nice. I had Big Sur to do with fingers and Distortion Felix to do with the pick. And when I played in Mars Volta, I did both. I did fretless, I did fretted, I did pick, I did effects, I did no effects, I did flat wound. And then I just kept evolving. And the last tour that Mars Volta did in 2012, I played 90% with a pick.
Really?
Yeah.
What bass were you using for the...
I had a 64 Jazz. Omar bought me it. It was a 1964 Fender Jazz, and I stuck tape wounds on it. And
so yes, I remember this. Was this the black one with the
Yeah, I used it at Download when we played.
Right.
And so what I would do is I'd roll the tone knob all the way off, and then I would put the pickups out of phase. So I would roll the neck pickup just a little off volume, and then the bridge pickup off like a lot more, but not all the way off. And you can find the sweet spot where it just sounds like flat wound string. Sounds like James Jamerson, and that whole tour was that sound.
If you were using tape wounds, did you ever struggle with, because whenever I've used tape wound strings, I've struggled with not being able to dig in. You get this like...
I still dig in. That's the thing, people would always laugh, like, fuck, you're breaking flat wound strings, because nobody does. I'm like, well, they're tapes, they're not flats, they're different.
Yeah.
But yeah, I break them all the time, because I hit hard, so...
They're difficult to down tune as well. Were you in like E standard?
Yeah, Mars Volta was all 440, so we never detuned. But yeah, like I said, it's like the opposite of what people would think. I'm playing tape wounds with a pick, where everybody would play tape wounds with fingers. And, it's Mars Volta, and it's still aggressive music, but I'm doing like a Jamerson Motown sound in music that's progressive. Because I was just trying to find that shit, I didn't, I'd already done everything else, and if you're a true prog type dude or whatever the fuck you want to call it, but like if you're a dude trying to pioneer shit, maybe not. I'm not trying to like pioneer and like be the first dude to do shit. I just want to do something that excites me that I haven't done.
Right.
And if that becomes pioneering or something, then that's what it is. But I just wanted to try something different, and I wanted to see if it worked, and it did. Because D'Antoni was such a radical drummer that there was a small amount of room that I could fit with him because he was doing so much shit. So I figured, I always know that if you want bass to be in the mix, you use flats or tapes.
Right.
Steve Harris, fucking Iron Maiden, to Cliff Williams from AC/DC, those dudes are always in the mix because they don't jump into the guitar range and they don't get in the cymbal range and they stay off the bass drum, and that's how you stay in the mix.
That's interesting because I guess there was so much progression. Like there's been so much change from band to band for you throughout your whole career. But even within the Mars Volta, it went from kind of quite a conventional sort of amount of effects and tone to being extremely affected. Like at times, maybe the most effects heavy instrument.
Definitely, I was the most affected throughout the set, because Omar definitely had, like way more freedom because he playing guitar. He could, if he didn't want to play chords, he didn't have to. If he didn't want to guide the song, he didn't have to.
Yeah.
The bass always had to. So I always had to fill a certain role, but I definitely tweaked it as hard as I could just because I was looking for different, sounds. I didn't want it to be traditional. And again, it wasn't really coming from a prog sense. It was definitely more of like a electronic sense. Like I was just thinking like, Square Pusher or something like that, where you're just trying to find bass sounds that hadn't been touched yet. And I don't know if I did that, maybe everything I did had been done by somebody, but it hadn't been done by me. So to me, I was just in some new world that I was super into.
Do you think it was because of the change of drummer each time?
That definitely affected it. With John, I went way more vintage. I went, he and I were the most similar in musical approaches and taste and playing. I think, we both love Zeppelin, and we both, he can sound more like Bonham than anybody on this planet.
Right, yeah.
And so why wouldn't I do my best John Paul Jones? So I definitely approached it like that with some effect. I think back then I was using whammy pedals, and I had good fuzzes and micro synths and wahs and overdrives and some weird pedals. Like I had the Moog ring mods and a couple other weird like 88 flanger and stuff. But then as it evolved, and then when we stopped doing more of the Zeppelin-y kind of proggy or whatever the fuck you want to call it, when we went into more mathed out, I kind of streamlined shit for a second. And then when John was gone and Thomas was in, I don't know, man. I just went crazy, threw a ton of ring mod on stuff, vibrato, fretless all over the place, super aggressive bass sound, more like David Sims from the Jesus Lizard, that I thought complemented the way Thomas played because he was so aggressive. I wanted to be aggressive, but I also wanted it to be focused and in the mix. So I wasn't going to use flats with him. I was going to go more aggressive Jesus Lizard tone. And so for 2 or 3 albums, that's what I did with that. And then when D'Antoni came and went back to more even R&B, because out of every drummer we had, D'Antoni was the guy who could play every style at a top level. Like he could play soul at a top level, funk at a top level, prog top level, fusion, jazz, everything at such an incredibly top level.
Right.
I mean, he maybe didn't sound like Bonham the way John did, but he's just a freak of nature. Yeah. And so I wanted his was the vehicle I just rode in the back as a tapewound, out of face pickup, no high end bass, just in the cut,
Yeah, that was definitely the biggest shift. That bass sound, but also drums wise, that was whilst every drummer had brought something different, that was probably the.
And my biggest regret is that, well, there's always going to be regrets in a band that's that kind of conflicted and combative and wild and whatever we were, but I wish we would have toured like we did on that record and then made another record, because D'Antoni and I hit a whole new level. I think the whole band did, just not D'Antoni and me, but there was these things that we do to certain songs off the what record was that? Was it
Nocturnicate?
Okay, yeah. So it was Nocturnicate. There were certain songs that live I would flip in a real Motown-y riff, and Cedric would always look back at us and point at us because he dug it, because he felt it, and we would just be like do 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 on the ups, and just sounded super, Sly almost, but almost Motown, Supremes, and we rocked that shit in a Mars Volta set, and I was like, this shit is ill. No prog dickhead is gonna understand where we're coming from because they didn't listen to that music, but D and I listened to that music. Cedric, of course, too. We all listened to that because we didn't just listen to one style. I think that's what happens with a lot of these bands, that they listen to prog, so they just listen to Crimson, they just listen to Yes, they just listen to Emerson, Lake Park, whatever. Like we listen to that, but we listen to Fela Kuti, we listen to Motown, we listen to, you know, salsa music, we listen to everything hip hop, you know. And a lot of bands just don't have that palette. Their palettes are very narrow. So I think of anything, you know, we probably turned off a lot of prog fans because like, man, I hate when they go into this shit. It's not proggy,
right?
But like we're like, fuck yes, it sounds like fucking Motown. You know, we sound like we're burning. You know, like that was my shit more than anything. If we hit Motown or hip hop style grooves, I get lit up. You know, so it's a weird. It was always gonna be like it'll be the highlight of my career, and it's the weirdest band to ever be in, especially because of the drummer changes. It's just. It was, you know, I think the most exciting time was with John. I know the most exciting time for me was with John, but the most creative time I felt for me was with D'Antoni because he plays so bizarrely but musically, and soulfully, and so, you know, I don't think I evolved much as a musician, but I just love fucking where we went with it, you know. So if that makes any sense.
Everything that I've seen you from early on, you were always fretted, and then when kind of, I guess, you started becoming more and more known for your 1970 jazz.
Well, I mean, all the Big Sur records are fretless.
Yeah.
And that was before I was in Mars Volta, and then The Widow, that's on Francis to Me, that's fretless. And the last song on
that's fretless.
Yeah, what's the last song?
Double bass.
No. What's the last song on Francis to Me? It's like 15 minutes long.
Yeah.
That's all fretless. That jam because what happened was, how that song started, we were recording the record and we were getting sounds up. We were in Australia in some studio in Omar. I had some 2-inch 16-track machine flown in or something, and we were just camped out near this beach that John could surf at. But John and I were getting sounds up on the first day, and John started jamming, so I started playing bass, and John and I just ripped for like 15 minutes. Omar took 10 of that 15 and put that in that song, so because it was just John and me.
I see.
And we were just doing, like, I do some Big Sur bass lines in there that like just happened to be in there because I was like, fuck, I'm trying to get ideas that are going to excite John. He didn't listen to Big Sur, so I could throw that at him and he wouldn't know where it was coming from. So you hear Big Sur bass lines in this jam and shit, but point being is that's all fretless. And then I definitely played fretless on every record.
Did you start on fretted? Did you move to fretless like early on when you were learning bass?
I started playing I could say I started playing fretless in the early mid 90s because my bass teacher always had this fretless that he would loan me, and I would play it and I would just go, fuck man, this thing is just dope.
And was that the 70 that you ended up buying?
Yeah.
Right.
And so I finally, when I borrowed it in like mid 90s, I was super into Jocko at the time, and I just said, I called him up and said, you can't get this bass back, I need it.
Right, because you put rounds on there as well.
Yeah, and so then he just made me do some deal, and I think I got him like a Roscoe Beck 5-string Fender, because I had an endorsement with Fender. I got him that, and I gave him like $500, and he gave me that bass, so I'm stoked. And I taught myself how to play. At the time, I was like, starting Big Sur, so it was like my friend, at the time we were really tight friends, Tim from Rage Against the Machine, and he had a fretless. So he and I would just play fretless all day long.
Right.
And we started Big Sur together. So it was me on bass, him on bass. We were thinking like, we'd be like Morphine, but like more hip hop and more funky and just fretless. And Jocko, like it was like our homage to Jocko Pastorius. And so the first record, like half the record first Big Sur record has Tim and I on bass, both of us on fretless. And so I just went deep into fretless, and I still prefer fretless.
Well, you've always said that you think a fretless bass is more musical for the amount of effects that you use.
For effects, for picking up just plain notes. If you put me on a song and I'm on fretless, I'm going to be way more musical than if I am on a fretted. I just have a connection to it that's like exceeds what I do on fretted for sure, easily, by far.
Okay. And you're in like quite a few different projects at the moment. Do you have like individual pedal boards for each one completely?
No, man. I mean, With Deltron 3030, it has to be funky, so I got like envelope filters, and I definitely have the sub pedals on there.
And you use a short scale bass with flat ones on it. I always forget the name.
That's the Goya bass.
Goya, that's it.
It's a Goya bass. It's just because it's cool, because it has, the thing what people don't understand is that a lot of pedals don't activate with just one instrument.
Right.
So the cool thing when you have a bass that gets a bunch of different tones, like the Goya, there are all these buttons up on the top that you can switch pickup selectors, or I guess it's EQ settings, but it's a click of a thing. You don't have to turn knobs and adjust stuff. You just flip it. So there's a certain setting on the Goya that sounds great with the envelope filter that I use. But if you're on the pickup setting or the tone setting, that is just what I use in the song, it doesn't have enough top end to activate the envelope. So it doesn't envelope. It just kind of goes boom, boom. But if you click in the switch number 2, that envelope finally gets hit and it goes bow, bow. So that's why I use it in that band, because I can flip in between, so it gets a mean flat wound sound. But when I need to go into a song called Positive Contact by Deltron, and so then I kick on that number 2 selector, and then the envelope, so I can do the choruses that are going bow, 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 and then I kick into the main song, and the envelope gets turned off. I kick it back into 1, and then it's boom, 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 boom. So Deltron, I use stuff, and then Octagon is a little bit more noisy. And a lot of people don't know about Dr. Octagon, maybe in Europe, but Kool Keith's the rapper. I know that people know Kool Keith in UK because of, even in Europe, because of Prodigy. Yeah. He's the Smack My Bitch Up. That's him, and he's on their records. And so the way they heard about him was through Dr. Octagon. Dr. Octagon was this masterpiece rap record, underground, that was made in the mid-90s, and I'm on that record. And that record really, I believe, is the first indie alternative hip-hop record.
Right.
The alternative kids dug it. So what happened when we made that record, we got offers to go tour on Lollapalooza and back, and just weird, like it wasn't really accepted by the hip-hop community as much as it was accepted by the alternative world. And we never toured it, but now we're touring it. And so it's DJ Kubert, Dan the Automator, me. So I do a lot of dark, heavy shit, because there's a real darkness to it and a metalness to it. Like Pusshead does the album covers. He did the album cover in the mid-90s, and he did the new one.
Right.
So I have to play heavy. So I got a lot of heavy fuzz, as well as ring mod sounds and bit crush sounds. So Octagon's really fun.
And what bass are you using?
Same thing, I use the Goya. And then I've been doing my own band, Halo Orbit, which has Mark Juliana on drums. He's the drummer on the Dark Star Bowie record. And then my friend Sugar, she's a guitar player in Buffalo Daughter. She's from Japan, and she lives in Japan. So it's hard to do the band because she's in Japan, Mark lives in New York, I live in LA. So we've only done like one run of shows.
And you're using that bass again, or at least you're wearing the photo shoots?
I think, what am I using? No, I'm using a white Yamaha.
Right.
It's the Motion 3B. It's a 32-inch 80s Yamaha that only has mid-range, has no low end, has no high end, so it sounds really good with effects. When you light, I don't ever not play it affected in that band.
Right.
It's always affected. So that's really cool. And then, I'm actually going on a tour on Monday. It starts rehearsals, but it's Emily Saliers, and she's made this record where Tim LaFay did a bunch of affected bass, and they needed somebody who could cover it because he couldn't do the tour. So he hooked me up with them, and so I'm going on that. And that's going to be like a 2-3 week tour. And then I'm, still just, Nick and I always talk about doing a project together. We just can't find a drummer that we agree on. Really? Once we find the drummer that we can agree on, we'll make a record. But it's just because drummers, man, we're fucking hostage to the drummers. It used to be the singers, and now it's the drummers, man. Like, if you're a really good drummer, you're not gonna do a band. You're gonna get work. My drummer Mark in Halo Orbit, he has this way more successful career doing his own music and jazz, and he does this thing called beat music, and he gets tons of gigs and offers because he's on that Bowie record, and he's amazing. And so we can't, use him. And so, D'Antoni, he's always booked, either doing John Cale or Michel the cello, or he does his own stuff. He has his own group where it's just him. And so, you can't just call up dudes and get, John Theodore. Yeah, I'd love to have John jam with Nick and me, but he's in Queens of the Stone Age, So we're all being held hostage by these drummers. So I really don't know. Like, if there's a drummer out there who thinks they can, who wants to rip with Nick and me, just hit us up on social media.
How would a band with you and Nick even work? Someone would have to take a step back.
I mean, I even talked to Brad from Rage Against the Machine, because we love playing and jamming and making music together. I said, man, we should get together with Nick, because even that would sound good, because I just sound really good with Brad. I can come up with ideas when he plays drums, or he's like with John Theodore. When I get with those two drummers, I can write endless amounts of music. D, I'm intimidated. I'm so scared of him. He's just so good. But with John and Brad, they start playing beats, and I can come up with ideas all day. So I could envision someone like that. That's who I would envision sounding good with Nick and me. But they're busy, and they're not gonna try to start up some fucking band with two dudes like us. Or you have to find, there's gotta be a dude out there that wants to get wild with Nick and me. We'll see.
But one thing that hasn't ever changed about your setup, or hasn't changed for ages, is your amps. What's your bassist?
Oh yeah, Ampeg has always been really cool with me. With Halo Orbit, I used two 410s. And I use the two 800 PF800 heads.
Oh, yeah.
So I really like solid state for distorted sounds or bit crush sounds, because it really is quick in response. When you use tube amps, that's a color, and then you have to tailor everything for that color.
Yeah.
And a lot of things aren't going to work with that color. So solid state's way more kind of flat, almost. So you get to design it from the pedal up. And so that's why I like solid state. So I had two PF800s, two 410s, one, and then I send the meat box to the PA the whole time. So
Just
Halo Orbit, the meat box was on the entire time. And so there was always low end fundamental, and then there was ring mod. So I'm telling you, if you took the meat box out, my bass sound would sound like this, because it's all mid range. It's all ring modded or bit crushed or fuzzed. Right. It's never standard bass. So the meat box has to be on to give it volume. So but it's the funnest bass sound I've ever got, man. Fuck, when we were doing those Halo Orbit shows, I was just like, nobody can fuck with me. I mean, they can fuck with me, but that's your mind trying to get you hyped up. But I was like, nobody can fuck with me. I'm killing everybody. You know what I mean? But, nobody got to see us really except for Japan, and oh well. But the same thing, it's another thing. We made this record over 4 years, the Halo Orbit record, and it's good. I think there's tracks on it that are really great. But after we did the 5 shows that we did, I go, fuck, I know how to do this band. Sugar's gonna sing, because she had to sing. I go, we can't bring a singer, you're gonna just affect your voice, but sing. So she affected her vocal, and she loved doing it. Now she sings, and she's my favorite guitar player. I love Nick, don't get me wrong, but I can listen to Sugar all day. And so she plays great, she can play keys, she sings great, and then, Mark and I were locking in, and I was like, fuck, now is when we should make a record, and now is when we should fucking start touring. But that's what happens in this world today. Over 4 years it took us to, when I met Mark Juliana, he was single, and he had not been on the Bowie record. When the record came out, he was married, he had a son, and he's on that Bowie record. Right. So guess what happened in his life over those 4 years? Completely changed. He's not a single dude hanging out with Juan anymore, going let's go drink beers or whatever. It's like, fuck. So anyway, but my point being is that I really think that kind of probably gets lost a lot in bands. They don't go out and tour and then go make the record.
Yeah.
The best Mars Volta record was Francis and me, and I think the reason why is because we played a lot of those ideas live during the Laos tour. So when we went and cut that record, it was already there, hammered out, perfect feel, and I still think that's our best record. At least it's the best record that I was a part of.
That's great to know. That's something that I hadn't asked, but
yeah, definitely. Francis and me, hands down, is the best record that I was ever a part of in Mars Volta. Second would be Nocturnicate. I love Nocturnicate. I just think that there's just such beautiful songs. I think Cedric killed that album. Omar and I played the least amount, which I think was really beautiful for the vocals, you know. I thought Marcel did an unbelievable job on the keyboards, like just so beautiful and textural.